Good morning, Hammers fans. My name's Nick, and welcome to Claret and Booze. This is my daily ramble. I hope you're all well. I hope you've all recovered to a degree from the game at the weekend, from that disappointing game away at Forest. I'm sure you all saw my my kind of rant. Oh God, I kind of wish I didn't do that now. I don't disagree with anything that I said, but I was a little bit irate. Not really necessary. I think not 2 games in, but it was disappointing. But in retrospect, you know, we should have won. We should have won. On another day, it probably would have been sort of 3-1, 4-1. So we didn't get the rub of the green that day, I don't think. But frustrating nonetheless. However, we're now in a situation where we have just 2 weeks left of this window, and it appears that David Moyes is finally. Well, David Moyes and the board they're finally sort of pushing for some players. Apparently, we've got bids in for 15 players now. Now, I'm not going to run through every single one that I've heard, but I have cherry picked quite a few bids that I think there's something in. And also, let's not forget, I've recorded this last night, by the way. So you're watching this. I recorded this last night. It looks like Thilo Kehrer is in the country. I'm going to go on to talk about him. And he's having his medical, so he should be announced tomorrow. Could even be in time for the Viable game, although I wouldn't expect him to feature in that. Emerson is also drawing close as well, so that looks like that's going to happen. So they're just sort of dotting the I's and crossing the T's on that one. So I think so. It could even be unveiled in the morning before this video comes out. I don't know. And there are some other ones as well. There's a lot of other players, so I'm expecting a lot of movement now. And there's still talk of a couple more going out, whether or not that is the case, I don't know. However, when you look at some of the players that we're linked with, it does kind of make sense. So, as always, if you are new to the channel, please subscribe to us, Claret and Booze, and give us a thumbs up as well, because it tells YouTube to share it far and wide. Okay. So let's get started with. I'm probably going to stick with this format until the window closes. So I'm going to start with the treatment room. Then I'm going to move on to the rumoured outbound players, and then we're going to finish up with the players that we're linked with. Okay. Right, the treatment room. As we know, Nayef Aguirre is not expected back until after the World Cup, at the very earliest. Ogbonna, apparently they've put Ogbonna on a fitness regime that should speed up his recovery. So whether or not the players that we're looking at bringing in, whether that's kind of gonna mitigate that, I don't know, because I don't like the idea of rushing a player of his age back after such a severe injury. I don't think that's a great idea at all. You just need to let him recover organically. Craig Dawson, that's a bone of contention. I think when you look at the players that we're linked with and the panic and how we're kind of it's polarised in the sense that we're focusing our efforts on bringing in centre-back targets, it looks like the rumour about Dawson having to go under the knife for this thigh injury is probably true. So it looks like we're going to be without Dawson as well. I haven't put Zuma on this list, but there is a rumour that Zuma is also carrying an injury, and anybody that's watched him over the past few games, you can see it. I mean, the guy whenever he goes into a challenge with someone now, and he seems very hesitant to go into tackles as well, and he never was like that. You know, he was quite full-blooded. He looks like he's lost a bit of confidence, and when he did go in for a challenge early in that Forest game, he got up and he was hobbling around for about 5 minutes, so he could be carrying an injury as well, because he's been off the boil, I think, Zuma. Right, on to outbound players. Now, after the performance of Benrahma at the weekend, I think they can't sell him now. Absolutely no way. I think there would literally be, it'd be World War II, World War III. Sorry, World War II's already happened, isn't it? It'd be World War III over at the London Stadium if we shifted Benrahma now. He was superb the other day. He was fantastic. So there are still rumours that, well, there are clubs interested in him, and you can see why now when you saw what he's actually capable of when he's unleashed. And he's got sort of Cresswell doing the right thing and overlapping and giving him room, sort of drawing players away for him and stuff like that. He was outstanding. So Benrahma has to stay. Thomas Souček, on the other hand, I'm not so sure. we appear to be going hell for leather to bring central midfielders in. And when you consider we've already got Downs and Coventry hasn't been moved on, Moyes is clearly looking for a first-team player. Now, we know that he doesn't like dropping Souček, so I can only assume that certainly one of these players, it almost feels like he's a Souček Mark II, even though he's older and more experienced, but he's a similar type of player, more technically gifted, mind. But yeah, that to me, that says that maybe Souček is on his way. Maybe there's a deal there. Maybe that's why there's such a panic to get a player in central midfield. Okay, look, let's move on to onto the juicy bit. Let's talk about the players first of all that we think are well, like I say, they might have even been unveiled by the time you watch this video. First off, we have Thilo Kehrer. Now, I've been looking more and more into this player, and I think it's an unbelievable deal for West Ham. He's top class. You know, when he played for Schalke, he was one of the best centre-backs in the Bundesliga. He was fantastic. He earned himself a 40 million move to PSG, and it was only kind of a season-ending injury that forced him out of that team. He was a mainstay, and obviously he's a German international as well. For whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but the PSG fans have turned on him. I don't know why. And they've got Sergio Ramos now, haven't they? And we all know how good Ramos is. Well, he kind of fought his way back into the team this season, and he pushed Ramos out. He held his place. But as we can see, his contract expires at the end of this year, and PSG are keen to move him on. And apart from anything else, I think the player wants to go. Now, they wanted 20 million for him. We've played hardball, which I wasn't in favour of in our position, but it appears that has paid off because the total deal was rumoured to be around about 16 million, but it's a 10 million fee with a load of add-ons. So we've got an amazing bargain here. When you consider he's a right-sided centre-back that is comfortable, as comfortable on the left as he is on the right, and he's a very, very good right-back as well. Now, I think we've got problems at right-back. Not so much with Johnson. I think when Johnson's not got to fill in at centre-back, he's a competent right-back. But I do think that the rumour is that David Moyes is also looking at strengthening the right-back position as well as left-back. So I think Moyes is finally seeing what most of us can see, that we've got weaknesses there and they need addressing. Right, on to the next player, Emerson Palmieri. The Brazilian-born Italian international from Chelsea. He's divides opinion, and I don't know why, because I've always liked this player. I think he's fantastic. He's got pace, he's skillful, he's composed, he's got real quality in his delivery. I think he's a brilliant player, and he's a massive upgrade on what we've got. He's 28, he's in his peak, hasn't really suffered from tons and tons of injuries. And like I say, we've apparently we're getting there with Chelsea. The player wants to come, 100%. He does want to come. They don't want to loan him. They want to sell him because they loaned him out to Lyon last year. And we're about 1 million or 2 million. It's just peanuts we're talking about now. So it's looking like this deal was going to get done, and they're hoping to get this concluded by the end of this week, so that he could be available for the big game against Brighton. Now, as you can see here, because I'm going to go in a little bit more depth about the players that I haven't reviewed already, and he is one of them. So he was signed by Chelsea from Roma in 2017-18 after a couple of really, really good seasons over there, and he was regarded as one of the best left backs in Serie A at that time. He was heavily used. He was kind of drip fed into the team in 17-18, but for the 2 years that followed, he was heavily used by Chelsea in those seasons. But then what happened? Reece James appeared at Chelsea at right back, and they shifted Azpilicueta out to left back, which pushed Emerson sort of further down the pecking order. He didn't really get much game time, and then last season he went out on loan to Lyon, and he was really successful there, and he notched up 36 appearances and developed some friendships with some players in that team. One in particular that I'm going to go on to talk about a little bit later. Right, next. Yeah, I know I've spelled his name wrong, but I couldn't be asked to retype it. It's Hans Vanaken, not Vakanen. Hans Vanaken. We've been linked with this player 2 years, 3 years, and it seems like it's every window as well. Now, this time, it looks like it's actually going to happen. I think this is a really odd transfer, unless it's to replace someone in an emergency. You know, he's 29 years old. He's 30 before the close of the year. We've bid 10 million. Bruges have knocked it back, and we're going back in for another bid again. The player wants to come. He wants to come and play in the Premier League before he retires. Now, this is Mark Suchek. This is Thomas Suchek Mark II. He's an inch taller, 6'5". Now he's an attacking midfielder. He can play anywhere in the middle. He's goal scoring record, albeit in the Belgian league, is insane. And not just his goal scoring record, unlike Suchek, his assist record as well. Like you can see there, in 343 appearances, he's notched up 102 goals and 73 assists. Now, I've had a little look at this player. He is cumbersome. He is more mobile than Suchek. I don't know if he covers as much ground, but he seems to be able to shift a little bit quicker. He's definitely a more technically gifted player. He can pass. He can see a pass. He can execute a pass. And he can finish, like we can see there. So, although he's older than Suchek, he would be, in my opinion, an upgrade on a player who, if he isn't as bad as he appears now, we've at least all got to admit that Suchek has gone stale. It looks like, to me, like his days are numbered at West Ham. He doesn't look happy. Moyes sort of threw caution to the wind last week. He did what everyone had been crying out for. He made Dek sit deep. He pushed Suchek further forward. And the finishing was just woeful. You know, the guy was almost goal hanging and it just weren't happening for him. I do feel sorry for him now. I don't think he's as bad as he appears now. You know, he was very useful when he first came in. But for whatever reason, it's just not working. So I think this almost could be a bit of a switcheroo. I think Suchek could be going out and this guy could be coming in. And dare I say it, he is an upgrade. You know, his record speaks for itself. I know it's going to upset a lot of people. Now the other player, those are the three players that we're rumoured to be signing on a permanent. Well, there is one more, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But there are two loans that we're looking at pulling off. Now, this is going to ruffle some feathers. I know it is. Eric Bailly, apparently we're looking at pushing this deal through. Now, look, I think he's a really good player. He has got an awful injury record. Terrible. But apparently the wages that he's commanding are not high. And he is a good player. He's a fantastic player. And if we can get him in for 5 to 8 million, then why not? You know, as a backup. We do need that. We do need additional bodies there. Look at the state we're in now. We don't ever want to be having to play Johnson at centre-back again. And he is a high-quality player. So to have someone like that we can keep on the bench for emergencies, the fact is, if he wasn't injury-prone, he wouldn't be happy to come and sit on our bench, would he? He just wouldn't. But this is probably, you know, the decisions that we're having to make at the club because we're struggling to get some of our first-choice targets. And, yeah, I think, look, Bailly would be a better option, much better option than Johnson in central midfield. He's a good player. So, again, he would be a useful squad player, in my opinion, if we can pull that off. Right, the next one, who we've already spoken about. You know what I think about Gallagher. He's tremendous. He's a fantastic player. It would be a dream to see Gallagher and Declan playing side by side in central midfield. Now, I don't know whether this is instead of Vanaken or in addition to. It could be in addition to, because I think that Vanaken is an attacking midfielder. That's where he plays. He almost sits in that number 10, and he is more adept to playing in a number 10 than Suchek because he's also got creativity. So Vanaken could play that role. He could do that. Gallagher could be box to box. Rice could be the CDM. That is amazing. The only thing that kind of makes me feel a little bit iffy about loaning Gallagher, because there's no... Look, it's not a done deal yet, but apparently the player is keen. I think that he would prefer a permanent move because he's fed up of being loaned about. But Chelsea don't want to lose him. They know his value. Although he can't really sort of cement himself in their team at the moment. He's a high quality player. So they're hesitant to let him leave permanently. But if we get him on a loan, my only concern is that him and Rice play side by side, end up like the best partnership in the Premier League. Then they take Gallagher back and then they buy Rice, and we've almost like sorted their midfield out for the next 10 years. So But nonetheless, do you know what? We've got to look at the now. We're in trouble at them. We're not in trouble. Sorry, I did scratch that. Ignore that. We're in trouble with the squad at the moment, and we need players. He would add definite quality now, and I think if we can get him, we've got to grab him. We've got to grab him. If we can buy him, amazing. If we can't, and we can only get him on loan, let's just get him in on loan. It'd be a brilliant player. Now, as we all know, we've been linked with the chap from Sporting Lisbon. Is it Matheus Nunes? I think that's his name. No, it's not, is it? You know what I mean, anyway. The bloke who was... we'd put a bid in for 50 million. He said no to us because he wanted Champions League football, and then opted to go and join Wolves instead, who he's apparently in an advanced talks with. Now, what this means is that we've got 50 million to spend on a creative, superb number 10. So there is a pot that they've put aside for this marquee player. There is. Now, we've already reported on this player, but he is moving. He's leaving Lyon. There's rumours come out, not directly from the player, but from the player's agent, that he would rather play for a team that's in the Champions League. But he's linked with Newcastle. And that is Lucas Paqueta. Now, what can we say about this bloke that we haven't said already? He would transform us. You know, it's definitely going to be him or Vanaken, because you wouldn't have both, but two completely different styles of player. And depending on which one you get, that would probably dictate the style of play that we play for the rest of the season. Because if you play with a tall man like Vanaken, then you're kind of looking yourself into a certain style of play. You know it's going to be down the flanks, whipping balls into the big men in the box. Whereas if you've got a guy like this in the middle, that's not what will happen. You'll play through the middle. You'll play football. There'll be creation. I would be over the moon. And that's the style of play that I like. You know, I don't mind reverting to that style when we're desperate, when it's kind of we need a smash and grab, but not every bloody game. I want to kind of see sort of skill and creativity and flair in central midfield. And he would be an absolute dream. And he is apparently friends with Bruno Guimaraes of Newcastle. That's kind of what they're hanging on. But he's not. They haven't agreed a fee yet. He's not in talks. He's definitely moving. But we're interested. And apparently he's got a very good friendship with our new, what I hope to be new, Brazilian-born Italian left-back in Emerson. So they struck up quite the friendship in Lyon when he was there last season. So look, that could have a bearing on it. You just don't know. Now, just running through the other rumours, I'm sure you've all heard. I haven't done the slide for him because I kind of don't want to tempt fate. Have you all heard the Dimitri Payet story? Have you all heard that one? Yeah, that divides opinion massively, and I can understand why. I'm not in the camp that would never entertain him being back here. I'm not. I kind of, he gave me one of my favourite ever seasons, and that was kind of him that facilitated that, Dimitri Payet. Now, I know he's 35, but if you have a little look at some of the goals that he scored over the past few years, and Marseille use him as kind of a super sub, I wouldn't even entertain bringing him in as a first-team player. But to have a player of that quality that you could sort of bring on the bench, when you consider we had Yarmolenko and players like that, to have Payet that you could bring on, I mean, he's superb. But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it is. He's 35. Somebody posted a couple of recent pictures of him. He does look a little bit overweight, because we know he likes his KFC, doesn't he? So maybe 35 for him. Maybe that's pushing it a little bit. You know, he will have slowed down. The Premier League hasn't. So if it happened, I wouldn't be unhappy. I'd be really excited. I would be, because he says he wants to come back for one last dance, doesn't he? But yeah, let me know what you think anyway. Would you have Payet back? Not as the main man, but to have in the squad, you know, to make us stronger, you know, to give us something else, you know, off the bench to help us change games. Would you entertain Dimitri Payet again? I know it'll be split. There's a lot of people that still love him, and there's many people that detest him. But yeah, so there's many other rumours. I ain't going to run through them all because, look, there's loads of them. There really are. we've got live bids in for 15 players at the moment, but those first 5 that I mentioned, those are the ones that I think they're the priority. So buying Gallagher on loan, Vanaken is definitely wanted, but I think that's only going to be if Souček goes out. Yeah, that's got to be what that is. I can't. We wouldn't have him and Souček, would we? And the other ones are obviously Emerson and Kehrer. So yeah, it's quite an exciting time now. So we've gone from I've gone from morose and miserable to sort of still full of hope. We've still got 2 weeks left, and it could all change around again. Whatever happens anyway, our season ain't over. It's not. We've got a horrible run of games coming up, but hopefully the first 2 games might kind of benefit us in the long term, because it will have shown David Moyes and David Sullivan that beyond any doubt we need new players and they've got to push them through. So, we might benefit from this slow start in the long run. Okay, that's me done. So, as I've said before, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit that bell notification button for us. And that will notify you when we go live. And give us a thumbs up, please. Give us a like, because that really, really helps us. Okay, enjoy the rest of your day. I've been Nick. Come on, your hands.